morning and welcome to this meeting of the Metro Inner Development Assessment Panel. I declare the meeting open at 9:51 a.m. and I acknowledge we're hosting this meeting on the traditional land of the Whadjuk people of the Noongar Nation. We acknowledge the Aboriginal people as the traditional custodians of Western Australia, pay respect to elders past and present, and the ongoing connection between people, land, waters, and community. This meeting will be run in accordance with the DAP Standing Orders 2024 under the DAP Regulations 2011. The meeting is being recorded and live streamed on the DAP website in accordance with Regulation 42A of the DAP Regulations. Panel members may refer to technical devices throughout the meeting to assist them in considering the information before them. I'd like to take the opportunity to introduce our panel members present today. My name is Dale Page. I'm the presiding member today. With me to my left, I have Nima Premji, Deputy Presiding Member, and Peter Lee, Specialist Member. For Part B, the town of Claremont, in the room with us, we have Councillor Ryan Brown, and online we have Councillor Kate Main. Welcome to you both. For Part C, the town of Victoria Park, we have Councillor Peter Melrosa and Councillor Sky Cruiser. Welcome to you both as well. Item 2, apologies. We have apologies from Councillor Daniel Minson, our local government DAP member from the town of Victoria Park. Members on leave of absence, there are nil. Item 4, noting of minutes. Minutes of all previous meetings are available on the website. Moving now to Part B, which deals with our town of Claremont item today. Item 1 on this part of the agenda is declaration of due consideration. Panel members need to have considered all the documentation contained within Part B of the agenda and the Part B related information. Could I please confirm by a show of hands that members have considered all information? Thank you. Councillor Main, we can't see your hand.
Sorry.
That's okay.
There we go.
Thank you. Item 2, disclosures of interest. Could I check with our local government members whether this application has been before you at a council meeting or a council briefing?
Yes, it has.
Council briefing. Okay, great. Just for the record, in accordance with a standing declaration of interest, if agenda items have been considered at a council meeting or at a council briefing, the local government DAP members acknowledge that in accordance with section 249 of the Code of Conduct, that they have participated in such a briefing or meeting. But these members acknowledge that they are not bound by any previous decisions or resolutions of the local government, and they undertake to exercise independent judgment in relation to the matters before them. Given this, nothing would prevent these councillors from participating in or voting in relation to this item today. Moving on then, do any other members have any other declarations of interest? None. All right then, moving on to item 3, our Form 1 DAP application today. Item 3.1, lot 5, pardon me, 5, 6, 7, 616 and 718. Number 21 to 23 Queensley Drive, and lot numbers 805 and 806, number 352 Sterling Highway, Claremont. Proposed Performing Arts Centre, DAP number 25/02907. We have one presenter on this item today, Melanie Cox from TBD Planning, speaking in support of the proposal. Presenters, I remind you, in accordance with clause 4A2 of our DAP standing orders, your presentation is limited to 3 minutes. We have read the submissions that you've made, and I will call you to time when your 3 minutes is up. Panel members will be able to ask you questions at the conclusion of your presentation. Over to you when you are ready.
Good morning, everyone. Firstly, thank you to the DAP members and everyone here today for your time. We wish to thank the town again for their collaboration during the assessment of the application. We are pleased to receive the town's recommendation for approval, and we have no objection to the conditions proposed. The school has previously sought and received development approval for a similar facility in the same location. The proposed development essentially proposes less than what was previously approved by the Metro Inner North Joint Development Assessment Panel in November 2020 2022 with an increased setback to the Swan River foreshore and MRS Parks and Recreation Reserve. No car bays are proposed to be removed. Reduced seating capacity of the auditorium, and the same building height is proposed. The current teaching and performance spaces at the school are no longer meeting the school's developing curriculum and requirements for drama and music. The new Perform building will enhance and cater for the school's arts program and will provide learning and creative development opportunities for students in the decades to come. For the reasons we have detailed today, we respectfully request the DAP approves the application as per the town's recommendation in the RAR. Ed from TPM and I are both available to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Councillor Mayne, I'll start with you online. Do you have any questions of the applicant team?
No, I don't. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Brown, any questions? Does any other member have questions? Nina?
Yes. When I was reading the report on page 56, which is of my agenda, it states that it's not intended for public use. Everything will be associated with the school activities. However, when I read the body of the report, it actually says on page 6 of it that's intended to. Which one is it?
Not intended for public use.
Right.
It's intended for school use is the primary function of it. I suppose like most schools in the PSA, though, there is inter-school events and inter-stuff that happens from a school perspective. So there may be those types of events that would happen depending on what happens, but it is not intended to be hired out for a private auditorium or a private function of that nature.
Thank you very much. That's all. Thanks.
Any other member have any other questions? Great. Thank you very much for your presentation. We will now move on to invite any questions of the local government officers. We have Tian Chishu, I hope I got that right, and Michael Hancock with us today from the town of Claremont. Councillor Mayne, I'll start with you. Do you have any questions of the local government officers?
No, I don't. Thank you.
Councillor Brown?
Nothing from me. Thank you.
Other members? I have a few short questions, and I guess a couple of more out of curiosity. Why was the previously approved proposal not progressed?
Sorry, you're asking the town why the applicant didn't progress with the previous proposal, just to confirm?
Yeah.
I'm not sure I could answer that. I'm sorry.
That's all good.
I'm not familiar with the decision behind that.
Yeah, we can. The previous proposal was developed at a time when cost escalation was a major issue for projects more holistically. So we did look at a redesign type exercise, but the school felt that that exercise wasn't resulting in the right type of outcome, and therefore we essentially started again. And that's why that's why we're here today.
Thank you. And then back to the town, I recognise the calibre of the architectural firm and the other consultants involved in the design of the project. And I acknowledge your capability in assessing this against the 10 design principles of state planning policy 7.0. So not questioning that. I'm just curious why such a significant proposal did not go through a design review process. Could you comment on that for me, please?
Of course, thank you, presiding member. So the town currently doesn't maintain a design review panel. The vast majority of the applications that we receive of this size have been going typically through the significant development pathway and been subjected to the state design review panel. This application could very well go through a design review panel should the town have been conducting one, though as you've pointed out, the town considered the 10 design principles to be well and truly met. In the event we had reservations on the design, we do have budget allocation, which would allow us to have third-party input from a professional to assist us in any design considerations.
Thank you for that. So in terms of bushfire, I'm also confused by the advice that DFS provided you, and I note that you don't agree with their feedback, and you have covered this off in your report to a degree. Could you just embellish on this a little bit for us, please, as to the DFS feedback that was provided and why you don't agree with it?
Of course. So DFS and DBCA both provided some initial advice that had reservations around the bushfire assessments. The town put this to the applicant for further information and clarification, recognising the bushfire management plan and associated bushfire documents were prepared by an accredited level 3 practitioner. The town interrogated the responses and considered the assessment prepared by the level 3 practitioner as being suitable and capable of being supported.
Thank you for that. Last question from me. Condition 5 requires a Section 70 notification to be registered prior to completion of works. Could you explain why you have worded the condition to require it prior to completion of works and not prior to occupancy?
Sorry.
The reason I ask is occupancy is a sort of a usual gate where we clear conditions because you can make sure those things are done before you issue an occupancy permit, but your condition is worded prior to completion of works. I'm just asking why you have worded it that way specifically.
Of course, Presiding Member. Would you mind if I just confer with my colleague for a moment?
Absolutely.
Thank you. Thanks, Presiding Member. So the previous approval from 2022 had the same wording for this condition. For consistency's sake, we applied the same condition in this instance. We wouldn't have a problem with changing the wording to prior to occupancy. From recollection, the previous application was a dual determination between the WAPC and the town. And I believe the department has a preference for wording conditions with different triggers to, rather than prior to building permit or prior to occupation, being prior to construction or prior to commencement. So for consistency's sake, for the last application, I suspect that's why the condition was worded as such, and we've applied it this time as well. However, we wouldn't have any problems with the condition being amended to prior to occupancy.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. I don't have any more questions unless there are any more questions of either the applicant team or the town's officers. We will move to the report. I will now seek a mover and seconder for the recommendation in the report, which is for approval of the proposal subject to some conditions. Do I have a mover for the recommendation? Thank you, Nima. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Brown. Neva, as mover, would you like to speak to this?
Thank you for the presentation and for the report. It was very, very comprehensive. It addressed the concerns that was put forward by DFS, and the officers have done a thorough investigation of it and have provided mitigation measures that gives us comfort. It's an educational establishment which the land use is compatible with the zoning of the area. The council has said, the bush management plan has been prepared by a level 3 accredited practitioner and has also been conditioned as per condition number 3. The design respects the architectural and historical context and responds to the Swan River catchment requirements. It is well designed, very appealing, and hence I support the RA recommendation to accept and approve the development application.
Thank you very much. Councillor Brown has seconded. You wish to speak?
Yeah, thank you. I guess I reiterate those points that I think this is a well-considered building, particularly given the previous design that was approved as well. I think the bulk and scale of this is in line with some of the existing conditions. I think there's some greater setbacks from the Swan River to really allow those views to open up. Having recently just also been to the ECU Performing Arts Building, I think there is a desire for some high-performing performance spaces. And I think this will just enhance not only the ECU building, but also I think provide a really good model for secondary high school students to go on to bigger and better things. But all in all, I think this is a great asset to Christchurch and the Claremont community. And I think the scale and the siting of this fits in well. So I support this recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor. Does any other member wish to speak for or against this motion?
I just think it's a great piece of architecture. It's nice fashion and somewhat going for it.
Thank you. Very briefly from me, this is actually a substantial and complex development, but the relatively short list of conditions, in my view, reflects a high level of refinement and resolution of the design and all its moving parts, and the town's level of support for the proposal being considered by this panel. The proposal meets the objectives of the educational zone and most of the requirements of the underlying planning framework. Although the height of the building technically exceeds the scheme requirements when considering the renders that were provided as part of the application documentation, it's my view that this facility sits very respectfully within the existing built form in the area and the landscape context, irrespective of what the height is measured at or how it is measured. It's also worth noting that the proposed height is the same facility as the facility previously approved by the DAP, though this proposal is otherwise smaller with an increased setback to the river foreshore, as mentioned by Councillor Brown, and retention of all existing car base on site. So I commend the applicant team and the town of Claremont for working together to bring forward a proposal of such high quality and design resolution. So happy to support. With that, I will hand back to the mover. Do you wish to say anything in closing? No? All right, let's put the recommendation to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Item 4 on our agenda for the town of Claremont, Form 2 DAP applications. There are none today. Section 31, SAT reconsideration. Also none for the town of Claremont today. With that, I thank Councillor Kate Main and Councillor Ryan Brown for your attendance and participation today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ten minutes.
Right, moving on then to part C of our agenda, which deals with the town of Victoria Park. And for this part of the agenda, I welcome Councillor Peter Melrosa and Councillor Sky Cruiser to the panel. Do we have Councillor Melrosa?
Yeah, I'm just asking him to start his camera. Hear us okay, councillor Mel Rosa? No, we cannot. And unfortunately, we can't see you either. Your sound is a bit muffled.
Hello, everyone.
You are back with us. Welcome.
Thank you. I had to reconnect. Something went wrong there.
That's all good. We can see you and we can hear you now, so we will get moving. Welcome to the meeting. Item 1, declaration of due consideration. So all panel members need to have considered all the documentation contained within Part C of the agenda and the Part C related information. Could I please confirm by a show of hands that all members have considered all the information? Thank you. Item 2, disclosures of interest. I have received a declaration of impartiality interest from Councillor Crusoe in relation to this item. Councillor has advised that she met with the applicant on the 24th of June 2025 to discuss this application, but has confirmed that there was no prejudgment expressed during that meeting or during the conversation where the invite took place about the application. Given that, I'm comfortable that Councillor Crusoe was acting in her role as local government DAP member. It also appears she did not expect to be part of this panel discussion today. So I am happy for the councillor to participate in the conversation today. Councillor Mel Rosa, did you also have a conversation with the applicant? And can I check with both elected members whether this item went to a council meeting or briefing at any point?
No.
No? Great. All right. No other disclosures of interest have been received. Do any members wish to make any declarations of interest? No other declarations? Great. Moving then on to item 3, which is our Form 1 DAP application, Lot 2, number 22, Brodie Hall Drive, Bentley, proposed research and development building, DAP number 25/02860. We have 4 presentations on this item today. We have Piyush Mathur from Ostvolt and Christy Downey from GHD speaking against the application. Burjeet Butler speaking in support of the application. John Miller from Busy Brain speaking in support of the application, and Nick Hidding from Hidding Urban Planning speaking in support of the application. Presenters, I remind you all that in accordance with clause 482 of our DAP Standing Orders 2024, We've limited your presentations to 3 minutes. We've read all the information you've provided us, so I encourage you to focus on the key points you'd like to get across within your 3 minutes. Panel members will be invited to ask you questions after your presentation. Begin with the first presentation. I think that's online, is it? Yesh Matur and Christy Downey. Your 3 minutes starts when you are ready.
Wonderful. All right, I'm just going to share my screen for the presentation. All right, can everyone see that one?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. All right. Piyush will be speaking first and then I will follow up. So Piyush, feel free when you are ready.
All right. I'll just speak about what we're doing next door. So we have got a facility, the first of its kind in Australia, to build a battery precursor pilot facility doing about 200 kilograms a day facility. This is first of its kind in the whole of Southern Hemisphere, doesn't exist anywhere. And also first of its kind to produce 40,000 tons of precursor in the facility we are planning to build in Kwinana. We have got about $3 billion of the state government grant and about $5.5 million of federal funding to build this facility. Given the time shortage, I can go on about the project, but it's really prestigious, and government, both federal and the state, believe that the stuff that we are building is going to go and contribute to advanced manufacturing aspiration of the country and the state. Thank you.
Thank you, Piyush. Thank you, panel. In working alongside Oswald in preparing a DA for its facility at 24 Brodie Hall Drive, GHD raises some concerns with the recommendation for approval of this proposal. The RAR understandably grapples with settling on a land use categorisation for the proposal and notes that it's ultimately a matter of fact and degree. We fall in the opposite direction of the recommendation and suggest that the premises is not primarily designed for research and development, but childcare. Operationally, it's difficult to understand how the research and development component will be fulfilled day to day with just 9 staff, as this is the minimum number of educators required to meet your legislative child educator ratios. In a room of 8 under 2s, would the 2 staff have capacity to gather data and evaluate trials alongside tending to the personal care, cleaning, food preparation, settling that would be naturally expected in this kind of setting? The RAR references legal advice that suggests conditions of approval to link the childcare premises to the R&D component. While the recommended conditions stop short of a time-limited approval, the conditions speak to the expectation that the research and development activities will conclude at some point in time. We're concerned that there is a significant burden on the town to practice proactive compliance, and ultimately there'll be significant inertia to overcome to enforce closure of a childcare centre if the R&D component ceases. This has the real potential to leave a land use and purpose-built building that is not aligned to the strategic intent of Tech Park and introduces unnecessary complexity that true emerging R&D proponents may not have the appetite to contend with in establishing in the area. Thank you.
Wonderful. Right on time. Thank you very much. If we could get rid of that presentation. Are there any questions of this presenter? I will start with our members online. Councillors Cruiser and Rosa, do you have any questions of this presenter? Councillor Cruiser, go ahead.
Just for me to understand a little bit more from an urban planning perspective, given that the sensitive land use conditions that are attached to childcare centres might be related specifically to having children on site and having them there all day, are the things that Oswald is doing likely to be a problem, or plans to do, just from having kids there, whether that's classified as research and development or whether that's classified as a childcare centre? Does that make sense?
Yep, I'll go ahead on that one. Look, we're confident that the Ausfalt proposal can meet the requirements in the various applicable legislation, but because there are policy instruments in place that will rely on the exercise of discretion, we think that children on site and potentially, depending on the activities there, the outdoor play areas may introduce a level of complexity and difficulty that it will make the Ausfalt proposal more difficult to reach that a threshold that can be approved. Yeah.
Any other questions, Councillor Crusoe?
Is it possible to give a little bit more detail about that, if it's available, about what are, you know, for example, would you need to have noise barriers? Would you need to have more concern about dust? What are the requirements that you might then need to have if there are children on site next door?
I guess our DA for Ausfalt needs to go through its own assessment process, but the areas that GHD are assisting with will include air dispersion modelling, and also noise from pumps and things like that. So yeah, those kinds of concerns are the areas we're most interested in.
Councillor Crusoe, any other questions? No. Councillor Melrose, any questions of this presenter?
Yes, please. You mentioned in your presentation your concern around whether or not the proposal was designed primarily for research and development or for childcare. I just want to know, maybe if you can go into a bit more detail through your analysis of the proposal. Can you describe the elements of the design that in your view might indicate that this proposal isn't primarily designed for research and development?
I do think the report discusses this quite well, but there are things like the arrangement of bathrooms and toileting facilities and the cot rooms and things like that that understandably would be needed anywhere there is childcare occurring. But these are the kinds of elements that I think would be difficult to adapt later on should the building no longer have that research and development component.
Councillor Melrose, any other questions?
Again, yes, in terms of, no, you know what? No. Yeah.
All good. Can I just follow up before I hand to the other members on the questions that were asked by Councillor Crusoe? So it appears from your response, and that aligns a little bit with the question that I had. You've stated you've concerned that the proposed childcare centre will prejudice your research activities and other facilities in the wider tech park. So Councillor Crusoe has asked, what does that look like? Can I just check in with your responses? Are you concerned about the potential impact having children next door may have on your future development applications and requirements that might be imposed on you as a result? Or is it more than that?
No, I think that is correct. And I would suggest it's about the barriers and the level of detail and reporting that might be required of our applicant and future applicants. And it would be an unreasonable threshold and introduce a lot more complexity, even if ultimately, yeah, an approval could be sought. That siting next to or in close proximity to such a sensitive receptor, yeah, would be very difficult and may introduce things like complexities in community consultation and things like that. That yeah, really increase the barriers for R&D proponents to pursue locating in this in tech park.
Can I explore that a little bit more?
Yep.
What are you basing that on? What evidence or information are you basing that on? Is it a concern, a general concern you're expressing, or are you basing this on some data or evidence that shows that this will need to be the case?
Certainly EPA guidance note for, I think it's industrial activity or similarly named, the level of detail that will be required to submit and get certainty for even this proposal is probably a higher burden if there is the sensitive receptor immediately next door.
Thank you for that. Other members in the room, Nima, questions?
Yes, I have a question. You have said quite a few times that, you know, you have to still go through the development application process. Can you give us a timeline of when you expect all this to occur?
The DA has been lodged with the town of Vic Park, but we are awaiting finalisation of air dispersion modelling that I think may have even occurred in the last kind of 24 hours. So, yeah, the DA is in and paid for, but awaiting assessment.
And if, you know, not citing what's going to happen, but when do you expect the construction to take place if the process went through well?
I'd probably hand over to Piyush for that one.
It will happen. We're planning before Christmas, so we'll do the infrastructure works. We can't put the equipment in the place until the application is approved, but we can commence like refurbishment of the building, doing the basic infrastructure stuff that we can commence. But once we got approval, only then we can start procuring equipment and putting equipment into place. So we can't afford to. Our commitment to the federal government is to build this facility by June next year. And we would love to meet the deadline because we have already faulted on it at least once because Kwinana, we had a land in Kwinana and we wanted to build it over there. And we could not get like in-time approvals. This is still ongoing with WA, WWA at the moment. So we, in fact, had to buy this building, which we are in at the moment, under the pressure from the federal government because they want to see this happen before end of next this financial year.
Thank you.
Any questions, panel?
Yeah, I'm seeking some clarity that if this was a research development building and the staff breakout area on the side of the building was in the outside area, what are the things, so you'd need to be careful what you were doing next door. What are the differences between that circumstance and a circumstance where it's a childcare? I'm trying to understand or get some clarity about what are the things you're really scared of there.
The presence of the outdoor play spaces and things like that located right on the boundary side is probably of most concern because some of our separation distances and things like that will be measured on that side.
Well, but if that was a research and development opportunity and that was a staff breakout area or an area for outside meetings and things like that, what's the difference between the requirements you'd have comparing that to child mining?
I think in exercising, in creating reporting and responding to policy requirements from a DA point of view, we would discuss that differently and explore that they are different scenarios when you've got children playing for multiple hours a day versus staff using it more infrequently.
I'm after some clarity on and what does that mean in terms of air quality or noise or what are the different requirements?
Yeah, it would be in reporting on noise and air quality for this one. That would be the discussion point, but yeah.
So there's different requirements for places adjoining childcare compared to staff breakout areas.
Yes, there would be. It is policy guidance though, so there would be room for discretion there and responding to the situation.
Thank you. Unless there are other questions of this presenter, we will now move to, thank you for your presentation. We will now move to Butler. Yeah, yeah. Can I just check, are you part of the applicant team?
No.
Okay. Your 3 minutes starts whenever you are ready.
I'm ready.
Go ahead.
Good morning and thank you for the opportunity to speak here today. I was thinking, what if Bentley and the town of Victoria Park became national leaders in transforming early childhood education? What if this community became the place in Australia where we trial world-first innovations that protect children, empower educators, and give families real-time tools to support their child's development? That opportunity is right in front of us, right in front of you. By backing a centre that combines outstanding early learning with groundbreaking research into how to give every child the strongest start in life. Now, I'm an early childhood professional with over 35 years of international experience, and I'm here to speak strongly in support of the proposed research and development early learning centre at 22 Brody Hall and Bentley, Brody Hall Drive, apologies. I want to sincerely thank the town of Victoria Park for recommending this development for approval. Your leadership has already set Bentley apart as a forward-thinking community. Now, what makes this opportunity even more compelling is that it requires no additional funding or commitment from any of you. Everything is in place. The project is fully prepared. Its infrastructure, innovation, and partnerships are ready. All that's needed now is your approval. Now, it's not going to be just another high-quality childcare service, and as we learned recently, we need a whole lot more of those. It's going to be a research and development hub integrating cutting-edge neuroscience into day-to-day early learning practice. And to my knowledge, that doesn't exist anywhere in Australia, possibly not even in the rest of the world. Now, licensed for up to 51 children, aged birth to 6 years of age. This service will meet all regulatory requirements. However, it will incorporate 2 innovative, groundbreaking new approaches. One of them is Busy Brains. Now, that's a neuroscience-informed program that tracks all children's development in all areas, and it helps educators and families to intervene early, personalize the learning and the curriculum created based on the child's needs, improvement opportunities identified in the child's development, and their interests and strengths to ensure what the system tries to do is to ensure no child is being left behind. Then the second approach would be Guardius. That's a real-time safety and location tracking system that ensures that all children are always accounted for. And believe me, that's, I think, the biggest fear of every early childhood professional, to lose a child or not to know where they are.
Your time, so I'm going to ask you to wrap up.
I will wrap up. So these innovations are urgently needed at the moment. Now, with additional pressure from the regulatory units on educators, there's now less time to be spent with children. So both of these systems will enable educators and families to keep better sight on their children, have more time, streamline their work, and in essence, create something brand new that hasn't been seen anywhere else before.
Thank you. Thank you. Our members online, do you have any questions for this presenter? Councillor Crusoe.
Sorry, just to clarify, you're not part of the applicant team. What is your relationship to this project?
I'm involved as an early childhood expert in the development of Guardius, the real-time location tracking system, and I've been consulting with John on Busy Brains as well.
Could I get a little bit more information about the concerns raised that with 9 educators on site who would be responsible for the everyday care of the children, feeding them, changing their nappies, putting them to bed, so on, how would that fit in with also carrying out research and development?
So there will be scientists on site. So the educators will be the ones responsible for education and care. However, like guardians, that will be inbuilt into the building, and children will have whereabouts, so they will be automatically tracked. So there is no additional manpower needed to guard this. And Busy Brains is somewhat similar. It works through an app. So whatever the educators are doing on the floor now in regards to their curriculum and their documentation, that can then be done within the youth learning framework via Busy Brains. And then it will then be analyzed by the scientists, and they can then observe, or there will be staff meetings. There is actually a hub set aside for the scientists to be on site. So it's literally two teams working together. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Lovely, thank you.
Any other questions, Councillor Crusoe?
I'm not sure if this is a more appropriate question for you or for the development team, but if you're able to answer, otherwise I'll ask others. In terms of considering the location for this site, was it considered that some of the research and development activities in the area may create complications for the children's outdoor time in particular?
I would not be the person to ask that question. Apologies.
It's okay. We can hold that question
Yeah.
for the applicant team. Any other questions at this presenter, Councillor Crusoe? Councillor Melrosa? No. Any other member have questions? Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much.
John Miller, Busy Brains, and Nick Hidding, did you want to present and we ask you both questions after both presentations, or? All right. Your time starts when you are ready.
Sorry, I went swimming this morning. I've got water in my ears, so I'm 3/4.
That's all right. We'll
so you'll have to bear with me. Good morning, members of the panel, and thank you for the opportunity to speak today. My name is John Miller, and I'm the founder and project manager of the proposed Research and Development Childcare Centre. Firstly, I sincerely thank the Town of Victoria Park for its foresight and support in recommending the development. Certainly, your leadership is helping pioneer change that will reshape how early childhood care and education is delivered across Australia and beyond. This is just not another childcare centre. It is the first research and development childcare centre in the country, embedded within a live environment so researchers and educators can collaborate in real time. It will be a national prototype setting the benchmark for best practices. The centre will incubate two innovations: Guardius, a real-time location and safety monitoring system and beyond, and Busy Brains, a neuroscience-driven platform to support and track every child's development across social, emotional, language, cognitive and motor domains. Together, these tools will drive progress across all 7 national quality areas. There really should be no excuse in the future for any childcare centre to operate below an exceeding rating on the national quality standards. This is what our research and development will provide. Research and development is urgently required to provide reform in relation to child safety, protection and early childhood education. This can be achieved now through the integration of technology and our understanding of neuroscience. The outputs of our research will be everlasting, creating positive change not only for the children in our care today, but for the next generation of Australians. We are also encouraged by recent correspondence from the WA Department of Communities, which acknowledged the significant progress and potential of this project. Their team recognised Busy Brains as an initiative aligned with the goals of early childhood reform and offered guidance on funding pathways and regulatory navigation. This demonstrates that the vision we are pursuing here today is not operating in isolation. It is resonating with leaders across government who understand the urgent need for innovation in childcare. Importantly, the outputs of this work will not be held in isolation. They will be made available to all families, childcare centres and the wider community. Our goal is not to build a single exemplary centre, but to develop systems and insights that uplift the standard of care across the sector. Technology Park is the ideal home for this initiative. We are committed to preserving the integrity and values of the precinct while contributing a project that aligns with the spirit of innovation, science and impact. With your continued support, this development will serve not only families but Australia's national interests, placing Western Australia at the forefront of innovation and child development. Thank you for your time, your support and your belief in what is possible when care, science and technology come together for our children. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Over to you, and then we'll hold questions for the both of you.
Thank you, presiding member, and good morning, panel members and Town Victoria staff. My name is Nick Hitting, here I'm planning consultant for the project. As John says, this proposal before you today is a unique proposal. It's not just another childcare premises. It's a purpose-built research and development facility incorporating an operational childcare centre. And this is aimed at driving innovation in the early childhood education and safety. Documentation that's been submitted and uploaded in attachments to the RA comprehensively set out the proposal in detail and deals with the land use classification quite well. We wish to thank the Town of Victoria Park for supporting this proposal. We've worked closely with the town's officers and commend them for their commitment to this project. The project has been amended throughout the assessment phase and additional information has been provided in response to issues. All those issues have been resolved to the town's satisfaction such that a recommendation for approval is now placed before you. The recommendation for approval and the conditions that are recommended are fully supported by the project team and would seek for the DAP to adopt the recommendation as it stands. Conditions 1 to 3 of the recommendation provide the DAP with the surety that the facility will operate as it intends, linked to the research and development intent. And condition 3 requires the proponent to enter into a non-registrable agreement with the town to ensure that the operations will continue as it is intended. And this condition was offered by us to assist the town in ensuring that the land use activities remain as proposed and do not change in the future. In response to land use compatibility issues, this was comprehensively assessed during the assessment phase, and we discussed this with the town. The town's RAR on page 23 and 24 talk about what's going on in the area and the proposal next door. The town notes that that application still needs to be fully assessed and notes that any externalities such as offsite impacts have to be managed, controlled and assessed, and also comply with other regulatory requirements, things like noise or air quality. That's a matter for them to control, and the town will obviously do their bit in assessing that. One last thing, the site in the Technology Park precinct is a special use zone, and the objective of the special use zone is obviously research and development activities in the areas of science, technology, education and research, and obviously early learning is an educational sector, so we fall squarely into the research and development in the education space. Thank you to the panel for the opportunity to present, and we look forward to the panel making a decision consistent with the town's recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Members online, questions of the applicant team. Councillor Cruiser.
Yes, following on from what I asked earlier, when it came to choosing this location for the centre, was there consideration that other uses surrounding this particular site might create issues and complications for outdoor time for the children on site?
Look, our main purpose for choosing the 22 Brodie Hall was that it was in a research and development precinct. To undertake this sort of activity in other zones could have posed problems where normal childcare centres be normally approved. But being an R&D facility, we looked around and chose Brodie Hall for its status, for the fact that it's a place where research and development is undertaken. We don't have any concerns about the precinct in terms of outdoor play. If there are industries there that are providing poor air quality, then they shouldn't be in the R&D facility. They should be an industrial park. That's up to the city to control through the Environmental Protection Authority. But outside of that, we don't see a problem. Look, it's a 51 place childcare centre. Our research will probably be working on numbers less than 51. So that was what we have got approved. But probably in reality, our numbers are going to be a lot less than 51 in the centre. We've got adequate outdoor play in terms of regulations, and we don't see any issues at all with the design and the proposal that we've provided to the city.
Any other questions, Councillor Crystal?
My next question would be, assuming that Ostvolt's development application meets the requirements for air quality and for the area generally, would you expect that you would register opposition to a development proposal there?
No, we wouldn't.
That's all from me.
Thank you. Councillor Melrose, any questions of the applicant team?
I guess, please. What are the specific design details that set this proposal apart from a typical non-research and development childcare? Given you are involved in multiple childcare developments across Perth, and this is the first of its kind, I would imagine there's going to be some level of unique or bespoke components that would make this stand out.
The difference between conventional childcare centre and this one, what's the difference? Design.
So we need, with our research and development, we tried to start a program with the Family Tree Child Development Centre in Ardros and start to run our research and development programs through a commercial centre. It was unsuccessful because in a commercial environment, it's very profit driven, and the educators in the centre don't have the time or inclination to get involved in programs outside of the day-to-day business. So it just didn't work. So we made the decision then that we'd have to find our own premises, build our own premises, and to be able to conduct the research in there, because it won't work in a commercial setting. Now, what's the difference between the two? The difference will be that the programs that we are running through the centre initially, until we can sort out the operational aspects, will take a lot more time. Will take a lot more effort in terms of the educators and their education and training. And, you know, we need to develop education training. We need to develop how this new curriculum is going to work with the early years learning framework in a real life setting. And it's got a lot of challenges to it. So I guess whilst the day-to-day care functions are similar to normal childcare centre, although we'll be introducing Guardius, which is a real-time location system over a period of time, the education and curriculum side will be vastly different than a normal childcare centre, and this is going to require a lot of work to implement this into a traditional setting. And once we can prove up the fact that this is not going to impinge on a commercial operation, then we can start providing this to the commercial market, if that makes sense.
Okay. I just need to, I want to clarify, like, what parts of the design elements of this design make it a research and development facility, and how would it be different? Because I imagine a childcare centre, and I've seen would do things like meeting rooms.
Councillor, could you speak up for us, please? You're breaking up a little bit.
Sorry. Look, to put it simply, what is different in this design for a research and development childcare centre as opposed to a typical one? The design elements, meaning, you know, like the research and development office programming, are these offices and rooms that you would plan in a normal childcare centre?
Look, the functionality of spaces and the physical space is not any different than a normal childcare centre. So it's got all the elements of a normal commercially driven centre from a physical perspective. It's more about the operational aspects in a normal centre will be undertaken in this centre, but vastly improved through operational efficiency, compliance, safety, through Guardius, our real-time location system. So that's going to be very different. We will be able to monitor children's movements, educators' movements, for example, in a nappy change room with the recent, say, sexual abuse incidents in this country. They want to implement CCTV, which is going to be an historical record. What we'll be doing is using wearables. We're looking at using wearables where if an educator and child go into a nappy change room and they require 2 educators there for a nappy change, we'll know within a nanosecond whether or not there's 1 educator in that room with the child or 2, or the child's been left alone. So this sort of technology will provide data from movements within the centre, which will dramatically improve child protection, safety, compliance with the regulatory bodies, and also bringing that system into the education framework will enable us to be able to look at social interactions between children, be able to look at what resources are being used on a daily basis within the centre. There's a whole string. I could sit here for 5 hours and talk about it. From an education perspective, the early years learning framework that's used across the country is a framework more about letting children play in the centre. The educators will look at those children and reflect on their learning. I mean, it's a great framework. It's been developed and it's in use across every childcare centre. What we don't have in the system is, for example, and because you've got groups of children, there's no individual tracking of a child's development. Now, we know that 97% of the brain is developed.
Sorry, Mr. Miller, I might just jump in there.
Yeah.
Councillor Melrosa, can I just clarify that your question was centred, and Mr. Miller said he's obviously very passionate and he can talk about this component for a while, but you're asking about the build form. You're asking about the building and how different the building.
Correct.
And you have answered that. Are you comfortable with the answer that you've got?
I think Mr. Miller, I would appreciate if Mr. Miller would just confirm that there is no difference between this design and a typical childcare centre design.
Okay. The only difference we see is that we've got observation windows in the corridors to enable our technical staff to be able to observe outside of the development areas. Okay. Outside of that, there's not really any difference.
So would you agree then that having those observation windows just means good practice in their childcare centre, given that you raised some issues around child protection? I think that this design would just become a standard.
Yeah,
rather than it setting itself apart to be research and development, this is more of a security issue. Would you agree?
You're talking in relation to the observation windows in the corridor?
Correct.
Well, the only people that will be in the centre will be those that are working within the centre and our technical team, which will involve our paediatricians, OTs, speech pathologists, neuropsychologists, who will be visiting the centre to do observations. And they'll all obviously go through the same screening tests that anyone would need to go through that are working in a childcare environment.
Mr. Miller, could I just follow up? Councillor Melrose, you're essentially seeking confirmation that from a physical development building perspective, this is not really different, and the windows that have been raised is good practice. You're seeking confirmation that it's really the operations within the centre that set you apart in an R&D sense. Is that correct?
Yes.
So it's not the building form or type that makes this an R&D facility. It's the operations within, and the building form and type is not that dissimilar to a normal childcare centre. Is that correct? Does that answer your question, councillor?
It does. I mean, I think it's harder to understand the design, the proposal, when we are hearing what it will apparently run as opposed to the fixed elements of a design, which can be easily determined as to how something might operate. The reason why I bring it up is because in the report, the town's lawyers weren't entirely convinced that this is primarily a research development childcare facility, and the wording in the report had me, I guess, look at the word, it was interestingly worded how it was written, and it didn't give me all of the greatest of confidence that anybody knew exactly how this would be operating, if you know what I mean.
Do you want to hold that question for the town's officers when we speak to them in a second?
Yeah, there's a couple of questions that I wouldn't mind asking the town as well.
Okay, are there any further questions for the applicant? Other members?
Just another little bit of clarity. So if you're doing research and development on a child mining centre, I would imagine it would have to be the same as a normal child mining centre.
If you just speak up a little.
Sorry. If you're doing research and development on a child mining centre to see how it works, one would imagine that the physical child mining centre would need to be the same as a normal child mining centre to make your research and development accurate.
Yeah, sorry, I think you're saying
Member Lee is seeking confirmation from you that in order for your research to be accurate, wouldn't you want the childcare centre to be as close as a normal operating childcare centre?
Yes, it has to be.
Is that correct?
It has to be. That's why we need to do our research in a childcare setting that is typical of the industry.
The questions were about, oh, why isn't it any different? Well, to me, it makes sense that it's not different.
Any other questions of the team from you?
Just a quick one, completely off the subject there. Trees. When I was reading the DA, there's going to be trees moved and everything, and there's some identified by the arborist report that could be transplanted and things like that. It didn't come through in the report. Is there an intention of doing that, or is it just take the trees away?
It would be a proposal to remove the trees. I think some of the trees have been assessed as being not endemic or to this region, and that a proposal for us to do a landscaping plan with a greater number of trees than ordinarily would be required. So I think it's a complete site clearing and re-establishing through a landscaping plan.
I have a few questions. And maybe this is one you may not know. I'll ask the town. How close are other sensitive receptors in the area to this site? Are there any others?
So we had a look around the immediate area, who's operating, what businesses are operating, how long they've been there. There was no other sensitive, like a nursing home or anything like that. No. I think the closest residential is to the east. So it's some
Approximately how far away?
I look, it'd probably be half a kilometre at least, so it's not in earshot at all. So.
Okay.
There is a childcare centre probably about 100 metres away from where our proposed site is. It's been there for probably 15 or 20 years. It's been operating obviously to service people in the park.
Okay, great. That's good to know. Thank you. So given the type and level of care and education that you're providing, word might get out and parents might find that very appealing. And noting that you can't expand the centre without further approval, is there space on site to increase the size of that facility if you see there's merit in doing so?
Is there room to increase it? No. So obviously under the childcare regulations, we're limited to 7 square metres per child of outdoor play and 3.25 square metres of internal area. So we have designed the centre to fit on that block with the required amount of car parking. And so 51 is it.
Right, thank you for that. Last question from me. So condition 3 requires that development approval for any substantial operational change will need to be sought from the town. Are you comfortable there's understanding between yourselves and the town of Claremont about what constitutes substantial operational change?
Yeah, I've got that one. Look, probably a matter of interpretation, but we were very generally comfortable with the wording that's been set out by the town. I'm just looking at the condition now on my phone. You know, the main component of condition 3 was the agreement to provide the annual reporting, demonstrating what the team has been doing over that 12 months, what proposed research activities are going to be for the coming year and those sorts of things. And that, yeah, look, the substantial operational change might be bringing on additional programs or new research things that might come up as you do the research activities. You might have another idea to come up with something, but it's about reporting those ideas as well in the annual reports for the town to confirm that continue under the current rule. Yeah.
Thank you for that. Unless there are no other questions for the applicant team, we might now have a conversation with the town's officers. So thank you for your presentations. You can take a seat, and we have with us Joshua Loveridge and Robert Cruikshank from the town of Vic Park. Are we happy to leave them there? All right, you can stay right where you are. Councillors or members online, do you have questions of the local government officers? Councillor Crusoe?
Yes, my question is that assuming that the Ostvolt modelling of airflow meets our requirements, is there any expectation that approving the development application for this childcare and research premises would create issues for Ostvolt's application?
Well, obviously, we're dealing with the application that we've got before us today, and as much as Ostvolt have made the submission that they consider that the proposal will impact on what they do, I guess the point and questioning that was made is that there's really no evidence today as to what are the actual emissions, noise emissions, odour emissions, and other emissions of that kind. What would they be? What level would they be at? And what implications that might have on the adjoining childcare centre. So it seems that we're speculating a little bit without having actual evidence in front of us. I guess when it comes to the Ostvolt application, we'll need to ensure that that application gives us some information about what their level of various emissions might be, and demonstrate that it complies with relevant regulations. So,
any other questions, Councillor?
The Ostvolt team said that having children on site next door would be likely to mean that they need to meet some higher or more complex level of requirements than they would otherwise. Is that generally true? Is the expectation that just having children on site next door will change what they might need to do?
Can't profess to be an expert, but what I think they may be referring to is the EPA separation guidelines, and the EPA separation guidelines talk about uses, obviously, that involve light industrial activities and their proximity to sensitive land uses. Now, a childcare centre certainly is a sensitive land use, But I don't know whether in this particular instance, because it is effectively as proposed and as for the panel to determine, it is potentially it's a research and development facility, which does involve children going there with an operational centre. So I couldn't profess to say whether that then means that the normal EPA separation guidelines kick in. Even if you were to take the scenario that the EPA's guidelines do kick in for let's just say a childcare centre, or it's to be viewed in that way, then there's minimum distances, but it's not to say you can't have a use within that distance. It just means that the level of technical analysis and assessment that needs to be done is probably more detailed. So it's my understanding is that, yeah, it may require some more assessment to be done and a greater level of analysis. But as to what the outcome would be on the childcare centre, whether that would, or on both proposals, whether it would limit either of them in any way, well, I don't know. It's all, again, speculative at the moment.
So if this is approved by the town, will that site then be listed as a research and development site, or will it then be listed as a sensitive land use site that then is listed as that which has those flow-on effects for other surrounding sites?
So the development application for you is to be categorised as research and development. So that's what the applicant's seeking approval for, and that's what we have categorised that as research and development. As to what implications that has for the EPA separation guidelines, I don't know whether by classifying the land use here as research and development, whether that then means that the EPA separation guidelines may not apply, or because the fact that there's children that do go to this research and development facility, whether the normal requirements for a childcare centre being a sensitive land use would kick in. I'm not familiar enough with the EPA guidelines to know what the implications would be, but the application you've got before you today is categorised as research and development.
So can I just follow up before we hand back to Councillor Crusoe? If we were dealing with a development application today that wasn't R&D into childcare, but it was R&D that involved children attending the site, we'd be dealing with the same issue, wouldn't we?
Yes, I think so.
Okay. Councillor Crusoe, any further questions from you?
Will it be the town that determines whether there is a higher requirement for EPA separation assessment for other development applications, or will it be somebody else?
The town certainly doesn't have the technical expertise, so it would be presumably a suitably qualified consultant engaged by Oswald to undertake an assessment. Obviously, we expected they'd be familiar with the implementation of the EPA's guidelines. So we'd be largely relying upon that. It may be that we seek independent review of that work.
Can I just check, would there also be referral agencies involved?
That's sort of what I was implying towards the end. It may be that we might get DWER or someone like that to review it.
Crusoe, any more from you?
Is there any idea about what the typical time frame is when it comes to having to refer to external agencies for understanding those EPA requirements?
So typically 30 days. When a development application is lodged and accepted. Just to pick up on the point earlier, the application for Oswald has been lodged, but the information that we've requested to be provided before it can be accepted. So we don't have, we haven't actually started assessment of that application because we're waiting on information. And that included, included a report dealing with the EPA's guidelines and compliance with and what mitigation measures might need to be implemented.
And when it comes to situations like this, when a development application might have been put in already and a site next door is in the process of meeting a development application, what is the impact on the later development application if the first one is approved mid-approval process for the later one. Sorry. That makes sense.
Well, I suppose to some extent it's first in, best dressed. We can only deal with what's approved and what's known. So that's, I suppose, probably the approach we've taken. This application's been in, we've been assessing it for some time. We can make judgment and exercise discretion based upon what we know about what is operating in the surrounding properties as to what might happen in the future. Yeah, it's still somewhat unknown, particularly in terms of the level of emissions again that Ausvolt might generate. So really, that's a matter that we have to turn our mind to when we have Ausvolt's application in the system and we are able to assess it.
Can I frame that a little bit differently? From the town's perspective and from a planning perspective, would it be reasonable to hold a decision on this pending resolution of the Ausvolt DA? Or would it be reasonable to prejudice or refuse this application based on a development application that has been lodged and you're not sure exactly what it's proposing because you don't have all the information yet?
I think my own personal view, we should be dealing with what we have before us. And it's, I guess if this application was to be approved today, then it then becomes incumbent on Ausvolt and their consultants as part of their application to do their assessments based upon what they know. That is that there's a childcare centre approved, research and development centre that involves children next door.
Okay. Thank you. Councillor Crusoe, anything further from you? Councillor Melrosa. Councillor Melrosa, can you hear us?
Hello again. Maybe I can. Hello?
Can you speak up, please? We're battling to hear you.
Oh, okay. I'm speaking pretty loudly. Definitely not working?
It's working, but it is a bit muted.
Bit muffled?
Muffled.
All right, I'll try and talk very loud then. A contextual question. Can the town confirm the operation and approval of another childcare centre on Brodie Hall Drive? It's called SNS. And what would the comparisons between the two operations from a research and development component be?
We can confirm there is another childcare centre nearby. I'd say it's probably 200 metres to the south. I think as Mr. Miller answered, it's been there 15, 20 years. I don't know the circumstances of that approval. It has been there for a while, but my understanding it's a typical full-blown childcare centre. As to the circumstances of that approval, don't know. It was approved under a previous town planning scheme. But yeah, I'd certainly not of the impression that that centre involves any research and development.
Thank you. Councillor Melrosa, any other questions?
Yeah, so just going back to the land use issue, did the town understand this application to be a childcare with a research development component when it was first submitted? Or did it require a round of further information where the town raised the land use matter before it became known that that was the intent of the applicant?
I think it'd be fair to say when we received the application, we're deliberating on what to call it. I mean, it looks like a childcare centre, has all the attributes of a childcare centre. But obviously the applicant was putting forward arguments that it wasn't a typical childcare centre and that the operations made it a research and development. So I guess early on in the piece, we were still scratching our heads as to what to classify it as. And that's why we embarked on getting some legal advice. So we got some legal advice, and the legal advice based upon the initial information that had been supplied by the applicant concluded that they felt it was two separate land uses. So it did involve a childcare land use. When that information was conveyed back to the applicant then supplied more information explaining further about the operations.
Okay, so you feel, in your view as the assessor, that there's actually a genuine intent to marry these two uses up because there's a need for childcare, and it makes sense because that would be the requirement to establish a childcare centre under the current planning framework.
Trying best to understand the question. Sorry, I'm going to breaking up slightly in my hearing.
Sorry. Yeah. Just in summary, do you believe it's a genuine intent to establish both the research and development and childcare together as a way of actually establishing further childcare in the area? Because that would be what you would be required to do under the planning framework, correct?
We've, I guess, assessed on balance. We see there's different arguments, but on balance, we've taken the view that there is a genuine research and development facility with a live childcare centre within it. That's the view that we've ultimately taken. And I guess through the imposition of conditions 1 to 3, that gives us comfort that it will operate in that way or has to operate in that way.
Anything further, councillor?
Thanks. No, thanks.
Members in the room, any questions? No, I have a few, if you don't mind. Just the question that I asked the applicant about condition 3 requiring DA for any substantial operational change. Generally, how would you define substantial operational change, or in these circumstances, what would you be thinking? Would it be an increase in size, increase in numbers? Any other, what sort of changes would you think would be substantial operational change?
I probably hadn't turned my mind to this. So as I understand it, this is essentially the wording that the applicant had offered to us. So we've probably largely just taken it on face value. I think now that you're asking me the actual question,
let me ask you this.
A change in the operations, the activities that are occurring. You probably, as you said, maybe changes in numbers. If you've of a view that maybe that wording could change or should change in some way, I think we're open to that.
No, I'm just exploring whether or not you're comfortable with that wording. And if you were faced with a situation tomorrow where somebody else said, hang on a minute, they're not actually doing stuff in accordance with their approval, what sort of thing would constitute substantial operational change? But you're comfortable that between yourselves and the applicant, you will know what that is?
Do you want to offer anything else? Or?
Oh, no, I was going to just basically go to what Rob was saying, that sort of more, change in, managing and larger scale changes in terms of more children or staff members, or those other large scale sorts of things, obviously given the nature of the use itself being, quite unique and bespoke. Obviously other operators may not necessarily have that same kind of operation, and therefore want to consider that as part of the overall, or whatever else through that condition.
Okay, thank you. Condition 11 requires a 0 lot gutter for the boundary wall. Why are you including this as a planning condition? Isn't it a matter that would be addressed under separate legislation at building permit stage?
It is. It is sort of more of a standard condition that the town would impose when it comes to these types of boundary wall being proposed. So whenever there's a boundary wall, it's generally a condition that would be standard.
So if I just elaborate, it's typically to get away from the additional height. We don't have a 0 lot gutter, and you've got the parapet that goes above the gutter. So essentially we're looking just for, it's a standard that we seek to have the gutter on the boundary to reduce the wall height.
But isn't that a building requirement?
Well, you could say I don't know if it's a building requirement. I guess we're talking about reducing the height because of the visual impact. So it's a planning matter in that respect.
So in the case of this application, given it's actually under height compared to other properties, is height an issue?
No, the height itself isn't an issue. I guess we're just trying to reduce the height where possible and minimise the height.
Okay. Just a minor thing, under the heading waste and stormwater in the conditions, there doesn't seem to be a condition relating to stormwater. Does this mean we're missing a condition relating to stormwater, or is that just a standard heading that you use?
So could you just point me to the relevant conditions?
So in your conditions, you've got headings.
Yes, thank you.
You've got a heading waste and stormwater, but there's no condition relating to stormwater. Is that just a standard heading, or are we missing a condition for stormwater? I guess if you don't see a need for a stormwater condition, that's fine, then it's just a heading issue, right?
Yes.
Yeah, there's an advice note about obviously referring to the stormwater soak wells, being trafficable as well. So they did provide a stormwater plan, like management sort of plan.
There's no condition missing though that you wanted to insert there.
So I understand they're saying there was a stormwater plan already?
Yeah, so
So
one of the
should it be
attachments.
maybe a condition to say that comply with the approved stormwater plan?
Yeah.
Yes, I think my colleague's telling me that there was a stormwater plan submitted as part of the application, which appeared to be generally acceptable. So I think with your line of questioning, you're probably correct. I think we'd say keep the heading stormwater and maybe add an additional condition which says something to the effect that the development is to comply with the approved stormwater plan.
Yeah. 13 stormwater civics works. Still works there. Yep.
Okie dokes. Then condition 21 refers to strata titling of the building or buildings, but it doesn't seem there will be strata titling in the case of this proposal. Should the wording strata titling be deleted?
Could be, it's a standard condition, so I don't think we'd have any objection to removing that.
Condition 24 states there's no signage included and separate approval might be required. Isn't that better suited as an advice note? It's making an observation and providing some advice. It's not really a condition, is it?
I think certainly the first part of the condition, this approval does not include signage. I think that might still be appropriate to include as a condition because the plans do notionally show where location of signage, but just the wording signage. I think maybe the second sentence, separate approval, may be required. That yes, I guess that refers to a separate process. So maybe that can
okay. If you feel strongly that that condition stays, then it's fine to leave it as a whole. To me, it just read it was more of a statement than a condition. Condition 27 states that external clothes drying facility shall be provided for each dwelling, but there aren't dwellings proposed. Should this condition be tailored better to the proposed development?
I think that goes without saying, yes. Yes. Thank you.
Condition 29 relates to the location of security cameras. What provisions in the underlying planning framework would underpin such a condition, and why are you seeking to condition the location of a security camera?
So under the town's local planning policy relates to bicycle and parking. There are requirements for secure bicycle long storage facilities. Part of that makes reference to provision of security cameras in addition to other, amenities in that respect as well. So I think, when we were crafting the conditions, seeing it fitting that, that would be included to.
Okay. All right. That's fine. Thank you for that clarification. Unless there are any other further questions of the town's officers, we might move to the report. And what we have in front of us is a proposal for a research and development facility with a recommendation for approval. Do I have a mover and seconder for the recommendation in the proposal? Moved, Nima Prenji, seconded. I'm happy to second. Nima, as mover, do you want to speak?
Thank you. Yes. Thank you for the report that has been prepared and the presentations that has been put today in front of us. I'm looking at the development application and assessing what is in front of us and what has been presented to us. In my opinion, the information, the proposed development does meet the zoning and land use requirements. It does provide a need. It is very unique. It's one of the first, as we've heard, is occurring. And the conditions that has been imposed by the city, and especially conditions 1 to 3, it is ensuring that the purpose of the facility as an R&D facility, it does occur. And that gives me great comfort in that particular aspect. Also, in the report, it has shown that the landscaping will be very well designed, and in the longer term will actually enhance the neighbourhood. The trip studies that have been given to us now have have made it very clear there will be an negligible impact on the nearby road network. The other thing is also this is a very unique facility, and I can understand the objections that have been presented. However, looking at the application as it stands on its own, I fully support the recommendation to approve this particular development application, also foreseeing changes to the conditions later on.
Well, I have a couple of amendments that I'll seek to move, but if there's a couple that you wish to move, now's the time to do it.
No, I'm okay for now.
Okay, great. As seconder, I will speak to the substantive motion, but before I do want to move a couple of amendments. I'd like to amend condition 21 to remove the words or strata titling of the buildings, whichever occurs. Do I have a second of that amendment? Thank you, Nick. The reason for that amendment is there is unlikely to be strata titling of this development. It's therefore more appropriate for the condition to require the action to simply occur prior to occupation. Do you wish to speak for that amendment? Do I have any member wanting to speak for or against that amendment? All right, let's put that amendment to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Then I'd like to amend condition 27, which relates to external clothes drying facilities, to remove reference to each dwelling. The condition will then read, external drying facilities shall be provided and shall be screened from view from the street or any other public place. Do I have a seconder for that amendment? Thank you, Nima. The reason is there are no dwellings proposed as part of the application. The amended wording is more relevant to the proposed development. Does anyone wish to speak for or against this amendment? No? All right, let's vote on it. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. I'll revert now to the substantive motion in front of us. From the information provided in the application, in the deputation submissions, and in response to questions today, I'm comfortable that the primary purpose of the facility is for research and development, albeit in a childcare context. Some of the staff proposed to work in the facility are experts you wouldn't ordinarily find working in a normal childcare centre. The operators are not run-of-the-mill childcare centre operators. This, coupled with unusual and quite onerous conditions of approval that require the approval to run with the operator and not with the land, the requirement for a formal agreement with the town, as well as annual reporting on R&D activities, give me comfort that this won't and can't be a normal childcare centre without further approval, and that land use categorisation and permissibility have been appropriately considered by the town's officers. Given the responses we've heard today, I'm also satisfied that the location of the facility on site will not unduly impact other R&D businesses in the park or preclude the opportunity for others in the future. It may well mean that other development applications may need to respond to the realities of what is happening on this site, but that is no different to any other planning application that is submitted that needs to respond to what has been approved or planned on a site next door. It's also not reasonable to refuse or not to consider an application based on a maybe or a lack of detail of something that will be happening next door in future. I'm also satisfied that the proposal complies with the rest of the scheme provisions and the 10 design principles of SPP 7.0 as outlined in the Responsibility Authority report. I know there were some concerns raised through public consultation about traffic, parking and noise, but given the location of the site and the conclusions of the traffic impact assessment and acoustic assessment and the related conditions of approval, I'm comfortable these issues have been appropriately addressed. So I'm happy to support subject to those amendments. Does any other member wish to speak for or against the substantive motion? No? Nothing further to add? We're happy to move to the vote? All right. Do you wish to close? No. All right. We will now vote on this item. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Item 4, Form 2 DAP applications. There are none. Town of Victoria Park. Item 5, Section 31 SAT reconsiderations, also nil. D of our agenda, other business, SAT applications and Supreme Court appeals. All the SAT applications for all the DAP are listed on the website for those who are interested. None of relate to the town of Claremont or the town of Victoria. With that, I close the meeting at 11:11 a.m. and I thank everyone for attending and participating.